He still hears the sound of the car pulling away. Not the engine, no, that part was quick, but the silence that came after, thick and watching, as if the night itself were waiting to see what those two small boys would do. Eli was 7, old enough to know that people who promise to come back rarely do. Noah was 4, small enough to believe the world could still be kind. Rain poured in slanted sheets, needling their faces, clinging to the single blanket someone had thrown across their shoulders before driving off. The road had already swallowed the taillights. Noah whispered, "She'll come back, won't she?" Eli opened his mouth to lie and found that lies had weight. He nodded instead, small, decisive, false. That was the first promise he ever made out of love and fear at the same time. The wind howled against the orphanage door. It sounded like a voice, half human, half memory, calling their names in a language only the lost could understand. Minutes passed. The blanket soaked through. Noah's trembling became rhythm. Eli's arms tightened around him. If they waited long enough, maybe someone would notice. If they cried, maybe no one would. Finally, footsteps. A woman's voice on the other side of the door, tired more than unkind.
"Oh dear, 2 of them."
The latch scraped, and light spilled out, yellow and uncertain. Hands reached for them, efficient hands, not cruel but not tender either. The kind that have comforted too many children who were never returned. Inside, she said,
"You're safe now."
"Safe." The word meant nothing yet. That night, in narrow beds that smelled of bleach and rain, Noah slept. Eli did not. He watched the ceiling until it blurred, promising himself that as long as he stayed awake, nothing worse could happen. "I'll keep you safe," he whispered to the dark. "I'll be the wall. I'll be the door." He didn't know then that promises like that can grow heavy enough to break the bones that carry them. 20 years later, when he closes the garage for the night and the smell of oil and rain follows him home, he still hears the sound of that car. He still tastes the silence that came after. And every time he closes his eyes, he wonders,
was it mercy that she left them? Or punishment disguised as love?
The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped through the mail slot like an afterthought. No return address. No stamp. Just his name, Noah Reed, written in careful, old-fashioned script. Inside a photograph of 2 boys standing near a seaside cottage. He knew those faces, though he hadn't seen them in years. His own smile wide, uncertain. Eli beside him, taller, already tired. On the back, 4 words, "It's time to come home." Home. A word that meant everywhere and nowhere. He sat at the piano, laid the photo against the music stand, and touched the keys as if they could answer. A single chord hung in the air, dissonant and trembling. He dialed the only number that still connected him to that other life. The line clicked, Eli's voice came through, rough as gravel.
Yeah?
It's me.
I can tell.
There's a letter.
What kind?
The kind that doesn't explain itself.
Then throw it out.
I tried.
And?
It came back when I wasn't looking.
Silence.
Then a sigh, the kind that means agreement without admission.
When? Eli asked.
Saturday. If you'll come?
If I don't,
I'll go anyway.
you'll get lost.
I'll find the way this time.
A pause.
I'll drive, Eli said. You always get lost when you think you know where you're going.
That night, Noah left the envelope on the piano and played until his fingers stopped shaking. The melody he found wasn't new, it had waited for him in the quiet all along. If the past calls your name, it seemed to whisper, you can answer softly, or you can pretend you never heard. He decided to answer.
The road back was narrower than he remembered, curling along cliffs that smelled of salt and regret. Eli drove, eyes fixed forward. Noah watched hedges blur by. Each one a year lost, a memory misplaced.
You kept the pendant.
Noah said at last. Eli nodded, pulling the silver crescent from under his shirt.
I thought about throwing it away, he said, but it kept finding its way back to me.
You never left this town.
Someone had to stay, Eli said. Somebody had to remember where the ghosts live.
They passed signs that sounded like old acquaintances, Mariner's Bay, Orphanage Hill, St. Jude's Lane. Every word was a knock on a door they'd once locked from the inside. When the sea appeared, Noah felt the years tilt. The horizon looked closer, as if the ocean had crept in while they weren't watching. He whispered.
Do you think we'll find them?
Eli's answer was soft.
Find who? Ghosts?
At the pier cafe, a woman waited with 2 cups of tea already cooling. Her hair was silver, her eyes kind in the way of someone who has lived long enough to regret being unkind. Ellie Reed. Noah Reed, she said, as if testing whether the names still fit.
You came.
Do we know you? Eli asked.
Not yet, but I promised someone I'd recognize you when the time came.
Who?
A woman who hummed before she spoke.
The lady said.
And a man who always smelled like the weather just before rain. Sit down, boys. It's time you learned why you were left behind.
The brothers sat because politeness was safer than hope. My name is Margaret, she said.
I worked at the orphanage. I remember the night you arrived. You carried a pendant each, shaped like a crescent moon.
Eli touched his chest. Noah frowned.
They told us they found us together, abandoned.
Margaret's smile was small.
Not abandoned, hidden.
Hidden from what?
From people who confuse reputation with love.
She slid a small bundle of letters across the table. The paper was yellowed, tied with faded blue ribbon. They're from your mother, she said.
She left them with me the night the storm carried you away.
The brothers stared.
Eli's hands shook, Noah's eyes filled, not with tears yet, but with the awareness that tears were coming.
Her name was Isabel Harcourt, Margaret said, voice lowering. Your father was Thomas Reed. They loved each other when the world told them not to. She was wealthy, he was not. When she became pregnant with twins, both families panicked. You were supposed to disappear quietly, so everyone could keep pretending.
Eli exhaled a sound somewhere between a laugh and a curse.
And they call that love?
No, Margaret said gently.
They called it sacrifice, but it was fear.
Noah opened the top letter, careful as prayer. The ink had faded, but the words still held. My sons, I cannot see you, but I hear you in the tide. If the world ever tells you that you are unwanted, remember that lies can wear fine clothes. Eli looked at Margaret.
Why now? Why tell us after 20 years?
Because the house across the bay is empty at last, she said.
Because the truth has no one left to offend. And because my hands are old, and secrets get heavier with age.
She placed another pendant, its twin, on the table. For the one who lost his. Noah reached for it, but let Eli take it first. The brothers sat in silence, 2 halves of a story, learning how to meet again. Outside, the tide rose, licking the pier. Inside, something else rose, the beginning of forgiveness. Margaret held the ribbon a moment longer, as if letting go of it would let go of more than paper. Then she slid the bundle across the table and folded her hands the way people do when they've spent a lifetime keeping themselves from reaching for things. The brothers didn't move. The sea tapped at the pilings beneath their feet, patient as an old hymn. Noah loosened the knot. The blue had faded into a near grey, the colour of laundry left too long in the sun. He lifted the first letter with 2 fingers, careful not to tear the years. The ink had browned, the loops of the handwriting neat and stubborn. He read silently at first, his lips moving with a prayerful care, then aloud because some words prefer to be heard standing up in the air between people. My sons. The first line faltered, then gathered itself. They have taken your names from my mouth, but not from my heart. If anyone tells you you are unwanted, know that lies often dress in manners and sit at the head of the table. Noah's voice thinned. Eli reached and steadied the paper without taking it. He didn't trust his hands to choose gentleness if they chose anything at all. They said it was for your good. They said you would be safer if I became a stranger. They said time would make a decent mother of forgetting. I nodded, because when you cannot win the fight, you learn to survive the morning. But every night, the sea remembers, and it teaches a woman how to disobey in small, faithful ways. Margaret watched their faces as if making sure the words were landing where they should. She brought them to me one stormy evening, she said quietly. Said if I held them, she might breathe long enough to try again the next day. I told her I would keep them until you could keep them yourselves. Eli cleared his throat. An old mechanic's sound, scraping oil from memory. Why didn't she take us? Why letters and not arms? The last word felt dangerous in his mouth. She tried, Margaret answered. Tried and failed and tried again. There are people who can move a law with a shrug and make a mother wait on her own doorstep. Isabel was brave, but courage is not a key to every door. Noah unfolded the second page. The script leaned forward as if hurrying to meet them. His name is Thomas Reed, and he is the truest man I have known. He is not gentle because life was gentle to him, but because it wasn't, and he refused to pass on what hurt him. He smells of salt and rope, and when he laughs, it sounds like a net shaking free of water. He chose your names and spoke them like a vow, Eli for strength, Noah for grace. He said we would keep you both, or we would keep our word to you in the only way left by keeping your names safe in our mouths, even if no one let us say them aloud. Noah's breath hitched on the word both. He closed his eyes and saw the tiny room in the orphanage where two beds waited, too far apart to be brothers' beds. He remembered the way a matron had said, "We'll see if they need each other," and how the decision had moved like furniture no one asked them to lift. Eli asked, not unkindly, did he know about us? Or was he the story they told her to remember instead of us? Margaret's smile was the kind that apologizes without using the word. He knew every day, she said. Men came to the pier with warnings wrapped in advice. He learned to nod and keep his fists at his sides. He went out in weather that wanted him and came back in weather that didn't. He sent money once, through a third person who returned it with a sermon on propriety. He wrote letters and burned them because he couldn't find a path that wouldn't lead trouble to your door. Noah read on. If you have music in you, perhaps it is from the way I hummed to keep from breaking. I did not know how to write a score, so I have written a description instead. The way a person who cannot paint might write about light. Begin low where the heart beats. Rise as if standing on a small hill. Hold the last note too long, longer than is reasonable, because some endings should look like waiting. Eli looked at his brother, a half-smile touching one corner of his mouth, as if it had forgotten how to visit and was trying the route again. She knew you, he said, better than anyone else did back then. She hoped, Noah answered. Hope is a kind of knowing that hasn't been introduced yet. He turned to another letter. The date in the corner belonged to the year they were born. They have a plan for us, and their plan is called caution. Caution has cousins named Silence and Arrangement. They want one child to vanish politely into another family's photo albums, and one child to remain as a lesson in obedience. I told them I would not have my sons split like fruit on a table while gentlemen argue knives. They told me I would have no choice at all if I kept insisting I had one. I ran once, and I would have run forever if a woman had not reminded me that running with two infants is mostly falling. Eli shut his eyes at that, because the picture arrived whole a hallway, a stairwell, an armful of children and the terrible arithmetic of which risk breaks fewer bones. He gripped the table edge until his fingers hurt enough to confirm he was still the man who had promised to be a wall. She fought, Margaret said. Don't let anyone tell you different. She fought with whatever a woman is permitted to use when the rules are written by men who dine with their enemies and call it diplomacy. Did she hate them? Eli asked. The ones with their careful words and clean cuffs. She pitied them, Margaret said, surprising him. Pity is a sharper blade than anger, if you know how to hold it. She pitied them for knowing so much about appearances and so little about love. Noah lifted the last of the bundle. The paper here was thinnest, almost translucent. If you ever come to the cliffs where the heather bends, look for a stone with no dates. We chose that on purpose. Dates are for those who finished their time. We were interrupted. Carve only this love, silenced by the world, remembered by the sea. If you read those words, know that I am not asking forgiveness. I am giving you mine for all the times the world taught you to doubt yourselves. Be kind to each other. When the question is whether to stay angry or to stay brothers, choose the one that will help you sleep. When Noah stopped, the quiet in the cafe wasn't empty. It was full of two boys who had grown into men without instructions, and now held a manual written too late and just in time. Eli picked up the pendant that matched his own and laid it in his palm, the crescents turning toward each other like two moons learning they share a sky. He thought of every time he had pressed the metal into his chest to remind himself he could still feel. He thought of throwing it into the sea on nights when the memory was a blade with no hilt. He thought of how many mornings he had put it back on because rage is a poor breakfast. She says we were hidden, he murmured. Hidden is not the same as lost. It's not the same as found either, Noah said, but there was no bitterness in it, only a careful honesty. Maybe today is the work between the two. Margaret rose and moved to the counter, returning with a small tin and a weathered envelope of her own. She set the tin before Eli. Inside lay a few coins, a ferry stub, a pew ticket with Harcourt in faded print, and a child's drawing of a crescent moon in blue crayon. She brought this the second time, Margaret said she couldn't keep standing at the edge of your world without falling in. She asked me to build a bridge with whatever I had. I'm not clever with bridges, but I am patient with boxes. And the envelope? Eli asked. For when you are ready to see them as people, not as history, Margaret said. It's directions. Not to a house. To a stone. Noah held the envelope as if it were someone's hand. He didn't open it. Not yet. Wait has its own calendar. You kept all this, he said. For us. For myself sometimes, Margaret confessed. There are winters when an old woman needs proof that caring counts for something. I would open the tin and count the ways love refuses to die tidy. Eli took a long breath and let it out slowly, as if testing the depth of a pool before diving. I spent years deciding whom to blame, he said. Names are easier to carry when you're angry at them. But these letters, he tapped the stack with one finger. They make me want to be careful with the truth. Not kinder than it deserves, just careful. Careful is a good word for today, Margaret said. Tomorrow you can choose bolder ones. Noah tucked the letters back into the ribbon, not because he wanted to hide them, but because he wanted them to travel safely. He felt as if he had been handed a melody with missing bars and asked to play it as if it were whole. He knew how to do that. Every musician does. We'll go to the cliffs, he said. We'll read the stone out loud. We'll see if the sea remembers us too. It will, Margaret said. The sea remembers everything. It doesn't forgive or condemn. It just keeps time until you're ready to hear it. Eli stood, the two crescents warm in his fist. He looked older and lighter at once, like a man who had finally set down a suitcase he didn't know he was allowed to put on the floor. If you kept them, he told Margaret, then you're part of what we were meant to find. She reached across and squeezed his arm with the authority of someone who has handed out tea and mercy in equal measures. Then let me keep one more thing, she said. Let me keep the kettle on. Come back when you've been to the cliffs. Tell me what the wind said. I've listened to other people's storms long enough. I'd like to hear one end. Outside, the sky had pulled its clouds into a gentler shape. The brothers stepped into the light that always seems brighter after letters have been read. Noah slipped the envelope into his jacket. Eli put both pendants over his head, the twin crescents touching like a quiet reconciliation. They did not say thank you, because gratitude this large resists small mouths instead. They nodded in the old ways that men use when their hearts are busy. On the walk back to the car, Noah said, I think I can write it now. The song she meant. I can hear where it waits. Play it for me first, Eli said. I always did. He didn't add until I stopped. He didn't need to. The road ahead curled toward the cliffs, and somewhere beyond that was a stone with no dates and all the time in the world. Morning came without ceremony. The brothers woke to the sound of gulls disputing the shoreline, the sea breathing slow and steady beyond the window. Noah sat up first, tracing circles on the condensation of the glass. We slept, he said quietly, as though it were an achievement. Eli grunted. First time in 20 years. They drove toward the cliffs with Margaret's envelope on the dashboard. The road wound upward, bordered by heather and stone walls mottled with lichen. Every turn revealed another slice of sea, restless and glittering under a pale sun. Noah finally tore the envelope open. Inside were folded pages of an old map, a penciled note in the margin, and a photograph of a headstone that seemed almost swallowed by grass. The path begins at the lone ash tree. Follow the wind until it softens. Eli squinted at the handwriting. Follow the wind. Sounds like something out of one of your songs. Maybe she knew we'd need poetry to find the right direction, Noah said. The ash tree stood crooked at the edge of the path, its roots gripping the cliff like fingers refusing to let go. The air smelled of salt and iron. The climb was steep, and silence traveled with them, a third companion. Halfway up, Noah said, "Do you think she wanted us to forgive her?" Eli took a moment. "I think she wanted us to know she never stopped trying." "That's not the same. It's close enough for me." When they reached the crest, the world opened. The sea stretched flat and endless, the horizon a thin scar between two blues. The grave was easy to miss, 2 stones, small, almost humble. Noah brushed away the moss, revealing the inscription. Love silenced by the world, remembered by the sea. Ili knelt. The ground was damp, cold through his jeans. He ran his thumb along the carved words until the tips of his fingers stung. "She wrote this line," he murmured. "Margaret said so." "She wrote our names too," Noah said. "Only no one let her keep them." They stayed that way for a long time, heads bowed, listening to waves breaking below. The wind shifted and brought the scent of rain, the kind that warns before falling. Eli said she was 21. Can you imagine? 2 infants, a scandal, the whole town against her. Noah shook his head. "I can imagine her singing. That's all." "Why singing?" "Because she didn't have anything else to trade for hope." He stood and began to hum, low at first, then louder. The tune from the letter, the one described instead of written, rose into the air. The sound carried, curling out toward the horizon. Eli listened, jaw tight, eyes shining. When Noah finished, he said, "That's what she left us. Not a melody permission." Eli looked up. Permission for what? To stop living like ghosts. They sat on the edge of the cliff. Far below, the tide was changing direction. Eli took both pendants from around his neck, one warm from his skin, one still cold. He tied them together with a length of string he'd kept since boyhood, the kind once used to fix everything when you couldn't afford better tools. He swung the twin crescents once, twice, then let them fall. The splash was soft but final. "Now they can rest," he said. Noah's voice was almost lost in the wind. "So can we?" They stayed until the rain began in earnest, fat drops darkening their shirts, the world around them blurring into a wash of silver. They didn't run for the car. They let the rain baptize what was left of anger. When they finally turned back down the path, Noah said, "What do we tell Margaret?" "That it's done," Eli replied. "That she kept her promise." But as they reached the ash tree again, something fluttered at its base, a small bundle, wrapped in oilcloth, half buried beneath roots. Eli bent to pick it up. Inside was a notebook, the pages swollen but still legible. On the first page, Thomas Reed ledger of catch and weather. He flipped through. Between accounts of tides and storms were paragraphs written in a different hand, quick and fervent. "If anyone finds this, tell her I went out in calm seas. Tell her I looked for a way back. Tell my sons to keep her name safe where mine can't reach." Noah touched the page like it was alive. He tried. Eli nodded. They both did. They stood in the rain, reading until the ink blurred, until the pages began to tear. Then Noah closed the notebook and pressed it against his chest. "We'll dry it. We'll keep it with the letters. Margaret will want to see it." "Yeah," Eli said. "And then maybe we burn it, like he used to burn his letters. Not to destroy it, just to let it travel." As they walked back, the clouds broke open for a moment. A shaft of light struck the water where the pendants had vanished. Eli paused. "Look." Noah followed his gaze. The light flickered on the waves like 2 small silver coins returning the favor. "They came back," Noah whispered. "Maybe they never left," Eli said. Back in the car, the map lay open on the seat between them. The ink had run from the rain, the paths blurred, But the destination was clear. Noah traced the coastline with his fingertip. We should visit that house across the bay. The one Margaret mentioned, the Harcourt estate. Why? To see what fear built and what it cost. Eli started the engine. Then we'll go see it. And after that, maybe we finally go home. The wipers moved in steady rhythm, keeping time with their breathing. Outside, the sea kept its word, rolling and rolling, endless and forgiving. They drove back in near silence, the car warm and smelling faintly of wet wool and sea salt. The road wound down from the cliffs like a thought that refused to end. When the first lights of the town appeared, Noah said, "It feels smaller." Eli answered, "Maybe we finally fit it." They didn't go to the cafe or to Margaret's house. They checked into a small inn above the harbor, 2 narrow beds, 1 window, the hum of the radiator trying to remember heat. Eli hung his jacket on the chair and sat down heavily. Noah stood by the window, looking out at the faint glow on the horizon, where the sea kept moving, though everything else had stopped. After a while, Noah said, "I keep thinking about her writing that line when the question is whether to stay angry or stay brothers. It's like she knew we'd spend half our lives picking the wrong one." Eli rubbed his eyes. "Anger's easy. It fills the gaps. You wake up and it's already dressed for work. And now? Now it feels unemployed." Noah smiled faintly. "Maybe we could hire peace instead." Eli huffed a laugh. "Never had the budget." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was settling, like dust after something heavy has been moved. Noah opened his case and pulled out the letters, spreading them on the bed between them. They looked smaller here, like they belonged in the past again. "We should give these to Margaret tomorrow," he said. Eli shook his head. "Keep them one more night. They've waited 20 years to be read. They can stay with us until morning." Noah picked up one letter, tracing the curves of his mother's handwriting. "Do you think she was happy for even a moment?" Eli thought of the grave, the sea, the words carved into stone. "I think she was brave." "That's harder." Noah set the letter down carefully. "When I left town, I thought if I made something of myself, it would erase what we came from. But every success felt borrowed. Every applause sounded like it was meant for someone else." Eli looked at him. "You made music. That's something real." "I made echoes," Noah said softly. "Maybe tomorrow I start making songs." Rain returned, light this time, tapping the window in slow rhythm. Eli stretched out on the bed, hands behind his head. "You ever wonder what we'd be if none of this happened?" "Boring," Noah said. "Maybe that's not so bad." "Maybe," Noah agreed, "but then we wouldn't know what forgiveness feels like." Eli closed his eyes. "I don't think I've forgiven them yet." "You don't have to. Just don't keep punishing yourself for the crime of being loved badly." For a long time, neither spoke. The room dimmed to the color of sleep. Somewhere below, a boat horn sounded a low, mournful note that traveled through the walls and into their bones. Noah whispered, "When she wrote about the song, I could hear it. It wasn't just melody, it was breathing. Like she was teaching us how to start again." "Play it," Eli murmured. "No piano." "Then hum it." So Noah did. A low hum, almost a vibration, filling the small room. The sound had the warmth of a secret told to the right person. Eli listened, eyes closed, until his breathing matched the tempo. For the first time since childhood, they shared silence without pain. When the tune ended, Noah said, "You were the wall all those years. I think you can rest now." Eli opened one eye. "And you?" "I was the door. It's time to stop waiting for someone to knock." Eli smiled, tired and honest. "Then tomorrow we tell Margaret everything. We show her the notebook. We burn what needs to be let go. And after that, you play that song somewhere people can hear it." Noah nodded. "You'll come?" "I'll sit in the back. Pretend I'm fixing the lights." They both laughed quietly. The laughter felt new, untested, like language they were learning again. When the laughter faded, Noah said, "Do you ever think the people we lose keep building small rooms inside us? And when we finally walk into one, they're still there, waiting." Eli turned his head toward the ceiling. If that's true, she's been knocking on mine for years. I just never opened the door. The radiator sighed. The rain softened. The night settled its weight gently over them, the way a mother might tuck in her sons if she'd been allowed to stay. Before sleep claimed them, Eli whispered into the dark. She said, "Be kind to each other." Noah answered, half dreaming, "Then let's start tomorrow." And for once, the promise didn't feel like a burden. It felt like breathing. Morning arrived softly, as if the world had decided not to wake them too abruptly. The rain had passed, leaving the harbor smelling of iron and clean wood. From the window they could see the sea folding itself neatly under the light. For the first time in years, it looked peaceful, not endless. They walked to the cafe. Margaret was already there, setting down 2 cups of tea, as if she had been expecting them all along. Her silver hair caught the sunlight like a small flag of victory. "You went," she said. Eli nodded. "We found them." "And?" "They're still together," Noah said. "And they forgave us before we even knew we needed it." Margaret's smile was fragile but steady. "Then I've done what I promised." Eli set the small ledger on the table, the one they'd found under the ash tree. He kept a record of the sea, and between the tides he wrote about her. About us. Margaret opened the cover slowly, as if afraid it might dissolve. "I remember him," she said. "A man who spoke to waves like they were people. We all thought him a little mad. Perhaps he was only honest." Noah slid one of the letters toward her. "You should keep these. They were safe with you before. They will be again." Margaret shook her head. "They belong to you now. Stories only stay alive when they're retold by those who paid the price of them." Eli smiled faintly. "We paid in silence. Seems a fair trade." Margaret reached for his hand. "Silence can be expensive, dear. Don't go buying any more of it." They drank in quiet companionship. Outside, the gulls argued about crumbs. Inside, 2 men and 1 old woman shared the stillness that comes when grief has said all it needs to say. After a while, Noah said, "We're leaving this afternoon." Margaret's eyes softened. "To where?" "Back to London for now. I'm performing again next week. I think I finally know what to play." "Will it be hers?" "It will be ours," Noah said. Eli took a folded piece of paper from his pocket, 2 pendants sketched side by side, a faint glimmer of graphite where they met. He placed it beside the teacup. "We left the real ones in the sea. They didn't need to belong to us anymore." Margaret touched the drawing. "Then you learned what she wanted you to learn." "What's that?" Eli asked. "That love isn't a possession. It's a place. You go there to rest, not to own." Noah nodded. "We thought we were abandoned. Turns out we were sheltered, just in the wrong direction." Margaret laughed, a small broken sound that mended itself halfway through. "That's life, boys. Most of us are facing the right love but the wrong way round." They stayed with her until noon. When they finally stood, she hugged them both, 1 arm each, like a mother who knows time is short, but pride is long. "You'll come back?" she asked. "We will," Eli said. "We owe you more tea." "You owe me nothing," she said. "But I'll keep the kettle warm anyway." Outside, the street shimmered with puddles, the kind that catch bits of sky. They walked without talking for a long time, each step lighter than the one before. Halfway down the hill, Noah stopped. "You think we'll ever stop missing them?" Eli looked out toward the horizon. "I don't think we're supposed to. Missing is how love keeps breathing." Noah smiled at that. "Then we're breathing fine." They reached the car. The air smelled of thyme and salt, and something new, freedom perhaps. Noah turned on the radio, static first, then a song. The singer's voice cracked on the high note, raw and human. Eli laughed. "Sounds like you." "I'll take that as a compliment." They drove along the coast road, windows down, wind flattening their hair, sea spray brushing their faces. The world looked younger than it had the day before. Somewhere behind them, an old woman sat in a quiet cafe, 3 empty cups cooling beside a drawing of 2 pendants that touched but never tangled. A week later, the city breathed in rain. London always did before it remembered how to shine. Inside a small hall, tucked between brick facades, The lights were low, and the air smelled faintly of varnished wood and anticipation. Noah sat at the piano, hands resting just above the keys. He could feel his heartbeat in the tips of his fingers. The letters were folded in his jacket pocket, the silver crescents, gone to the sea, still warmed his chest in memory. He closed his eyes and saw the cliff again, the ash tree bowing in the wind, the stone carved with words that had already outlived the people who wrote them. Love silenced by the world, remembered by the sea. Tonight, he thought, the world could listen for once. When the audience settled, he began not with melody, but with silence, the kind that feels like breath drawn before a confession. Then one low note, patient, deliberate, like a door opening. Another higher trembled after it. The tune unfolded slowly, climbing the way courage does, uncertain but steady. Every phrase carried something he couldn't say, the thud of a closing car door. The rain against tin, a 7-year-old boy holding his brother's hand because there was no one else left to hold. He let the sound of that night melt into the chords. The minor key shifted toward light grief, learned how to lean into grace. In the back row, Eli sat with his head bowed. The roughness of his hands, the engine grease that never quite washed away, seemed foreign here. Yet when the music rose, he recognized it. It was the voice of a woman he'd never heard speak, calling them home through every note. Noah's playing grew softer, as if coaxing something delicate out of hiding. The melody described circles, always returning, never repeating. It held both halves of a life, what was taken and what remained. He felt the audience lean forward, caught not by skill, but by sincerity. A tear slid down his cheek, he didn't wipe it away. Some things deserve to fall. Halfway through, the theme fractured, descending into a quiet storm. The left hand pulsed a heartbeat, faltering, recovering, faltering again. Then, without warning, the right hand climbed toward a single bright note and let it ring. It hung in the air, trembling, refusing to resolve. Noah lifted his hands but didn't strike another key. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of the sound of people remembering their own losses. He waited until he could hear the soft sniffles, the shifting of breath. Then he played the final phrase, simple, unguarded, like forgiveness spoken aloud for the first time. The last chord faded into nothing. For a moment no one moved. Then applause rose, hesitant at first, then wholehearted. It rolled through the room like surf returning to shore. Noah stood, bowed once, and looked toward the back. Eli was on his feet, clapping with both hands, eyes wet and unashamed. Noah mouthed, "Thank you." Eli answered, "For both of us." After the applause thinned and the hall began to empty, Noah stayed on stage. The lights dimmed to the warm gold of evening. Eli came down the aisle, his steps slow, deliberate, as if crossing a bridge he'd waited half a lifetime to build. "That was her song," he said quietly. Noah smiled. "Ours now." Eli reached out and touched the edge of the piano. "You left the last note open." "I wanted it to breathe," Noah said. "Endings shouldn't shut the door." They stood there a moment, listening to the echo fade. The room smelled of cedar and rain. Outside, London had begun to glow again, the puddles holding bits of light like memory refusing to sink. Eli said, "You know what's strange? I don't feel finished." "Good," Noah said. "Stories aren't meant to finish. They're meant to keep someone company." They left the hall together. The street was slick, lamplight bending in every puddle. A few people recognized Noah and nodded. He nodded back, grateful but distant. Eli's jacket was too thin for the weather, but he didn't seem to mind. "Where to now?" Eli asked. "Back to the sea, maybe. To tell them we kept our word." Eli smiled. "They already know." They walked past the river, where the tide pushed against the embankment with the same quiet persistence that had once carried two pendants out to sea. Noah stopped at the railing, looking down at the water sliding under the bridge. "I used to hate nights like this," he said. "Too much reflection." "And now?" "Now I think reflections are proof something's still shining." Eli leaned on the railing beside him. "We did all right, didn't we? We did what we could. That's usually enough." They watched the water until the cold began to bite. A bus rumbled by, splashing their shoes. They laughed real laughter, unguarded, surprising themselves with how easy it came. As they turned toward home, Noah said, "You still hear it sometimes? The car driving away?" Eli nodded once. "Every now and then." And the silence after? Less and less. He paused, looking ahead. "It's starting to sound like music." They crossed the street. Behind them, the hall's door clicked shut. Somewhere, unseen, an old kettle hissed on a stove, and an old woman poured 2 cups she would keep warm just in case. At the corner, Noah looked up. The sky above the city was pale and full of motion, clouds moving east toward the sea. He raised a hand, as if to wave at something no one else could see. Eli asked, "What is it?" "Just the wind changing." They walked on. The sound of their steps fell into rhythm, steady and sure, like the heartbeat of a story that had finally learned how to rest. And if anyone had been close enough to hear, they might have noticed that the brothers were humming softly, the same tune, the one their mother had once imagined, and the sea had kept safe. The melody drifted behind them, thin but unbroken, a promise that love, once found, never really leaves. End